Danny Cole was 12 years old, and he was walking home through the forest. The path was the same one he took every day after school. It went behind the colony settlement on Verdun 7, a planet at the edge of human space. Most people called it a frontier world, because humans had only lived there for about 30 years. The twin suns were going down. On Earth, there was only one sun, but here there were two. They made the sky turn purple and orange at the same time. Long shadows stretched across the ground. The alien plants looked strange in this light. They had leaves that were blue instead of green, and some of them glowed a little when it got dark. Danny liked this time of day. The air was cool and smelled like rain was coming. He had his backpack on his shoulders, and he was thinking about the homework he had to do. Math was hard this week. His teacher wanted them to learn about something called calculus, and Danny did not understand it at all. Then he heard something. It was a strange sound. It was like glass breaking, but also like thunder, but softer. And it sounded sad. Very sad. Like someone crying, but not a human someone. Danny stopped walking. He looked around. The sound was coming from somewhere to his left, down in a rocky area that everyone called the ravine. Kids were not supposed to go there because the rocks were loose and you could fall. But the crying sound did not stop. It got louder. Danny thought about just going home. His mother would worry if he was late. His father would ask where he had been. But something about that sound made his chest feel tight. Something was hurt down there. Something needed help. He climbed down carefully. The rocks were sharp and he scraped his hand once, but he kept going. The crying sound guided him like a beacon. It got louder and louder until he came around a big boulder and saw it. Danny stopped, breathing for a moment. It was a dragon. Not a big dragon. It was about the size of his neighbor's dog, the one named Buster. But it was definitely a dragon. It had scales that changed color when you looked at them. Sometimes they were silver, and sometimes they were dark blue like the night sky. It had wings, but one of them was bent wrong. It was broken. The dragon was lying on its side and making that crying sound. Danny knew what this was. Everyone on the colony knew about the Drakari. They were an ancient species that had been traveling through space for millions of years. Their adult forms were huge. They could survive in the vacuum of space without suits. They could breathe plasma fire that was hotter than the sun. They lived for thousands of years, and they did not like humans. They did not like any species that they considered lesser. For 200 years, humans had tried to talk to them, to trade with them, to make friends with them. The Drakari ignored all of it. They acted like humans were insects, not worth their time. But this was not an adult. This was a baby, a hatchling. And it was hurt and alone and crying. Danny walked closer. The hatchling saw him and made a scared sound. It tried to move away, but it could not. Its broken wing was trapped under its body. "Hey," Danny said softly. "Hey, it's okay. I'm not going to hurt you." The hatchling's eyes were like fire. Orange and red and yellow all mixed together. They were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. But Danny could see something in those eyes that he recognized. Fear, pain, loneliness. He had felt those things before. When he was little and got lost in a shopping center on Earth. When he broke his arm falling off his bike. When his grandmother died and he did not understand why she was not coming back. This little dragon felt all of those things right now. Danny took off his jacket. It was his favorite one, blue with a patch on the sleeve from his old school on Earth. He moved very slowly toward the hatchling. The creature hissed at him. A tiny bit of smoke came out of its nose. "I know you're scared," Danny said. "I would be scared too, but I want to help you. Your wing is hurt and you need help. Will you let me help you?" The hatchling looked at him. It was like it was trying to decide something important. Danny waited. He did not move. He just held out the jacket and waited. After a long moment, the hatchling stopped hissing. It made a small sound, almost like a question. Danny nodded. Yeah, I'm going to help you. I promise. He wrapped the jacket around the hatchling very carefully. The creature was warm, much warmer than a human. Its scales felt smooth like glass, but also soft in a strange way. The hatchling made a sound of pain when Danny had to move its broken wing, but it did not try to bite him or burn him. Once the hatchling was wrapped up, Danny lifted it. It was heavier than it looked, but not too heavy. He held it against his chest like a baby. I'm going to take you home, Danny said. My mom knows about aliens. She studies them. She can help fix your wing, okay? The hatchling looked up at him. Its fire eyes met his brown ones. Something passed between them in that moment. Danny did not know what it was. It felt like a door opening somewhere deep inside him. It felt like finding something he did not know he was looking for. The hatchling made a soft sound and rested its head against Danny's shoulder. I'm going to call you Ember, Danny said as he started climbing back up the ravine. Because your eyes look like embers in a fire. Is that okay? The hatchling made another soft sound. Danny decided that meant yes. The climb back up was hard with Ember in his arms. Danny slipped twice and almost fell once. But he did not let go. He held on tight and kept climbing until he reached the top. The twin suns had set completely now. The stars were coming out. Somewhere up there, among all those lights, Ember's family was probably looking for her. Somewhere up there, the Drakari were flying through space like gods. But down here, on this small planet, a human boy was carrying a dragon hatchling home. He did not know that his life was about to change forever. He did not know that by morning, everything would be different. All Danny knew was that Ember needed help, and he was going to give it. He walked home through the darkness, holding her close, telling her that everything was going to be okay. Danny's mother dropped the cup she was holding when he walked through the door. It shattered on the floor, but nobody cared about that. She was staring at the bundle in Danny's arms with wide eyes. Danny, she said very slowly. What is that? Her name is Ember, Danny said. I found her in the ravine. Her wing is broken. She needs help. Karen Cole was a xenobiologist. That meant she studied alien life. She had spent 20 years learning about creatures from other worlds. She had seen things that most humans never saw, but she had never seen anything like this. That's a Drakari hatchling, she whispered. Danny, where did you? Danny's father came running from the other room. Pete Cole was a big man with strong hands from years of building things. He fixed machines and buildings all over the colony. He was not afraid of anything. But when he saw what Danny was holding, he stopped and his face went pale. Son, Pete said carefully, you need to put that down right now. Those creatures are dangerous. She's not dangerous, Danny said. She's hurt and scared. Look at her wing. It's broken. Ember shifted in Danny's arms. She looked at the two adults with her fire eyes. A low growl came from her throat. Small sparks flew from between her teeth. See? Pete said. She's threatening us. Danny, please. But Danny did not put her down. Instead, he held her closer. She's not threatening you. She's scared of you. There's a difference. Karen looked at her son. She saw something in his face that she had never seen before. A kind of certainty. A kind of purpose. Danny was not going to let this creature go. He had made a choice in that ravine, and he was going to stick to it. Okay, Karen said slowly. Okay, let me look at her wing. But Danny, if she tries to hurt me, you have to let her go. Do you understand? Danny nodded. He sat down on the floor with Ember in his lap. The hatchling tensed when Karen came close. Her growl got louder. The sparks got brighter. "Ember," Danny said softly, "this is my mom. She's going to help you. She's really good at helping. She helped me when I broke my arm. Remember I told you about that? She can fix your wing too, but you have to let her touch you, okay?" The hatchling looked up at Danny. Those fire eyes stared into his for a long moment. Then slowly, very slowly, she stopped growling. The sparks faded away. She turned to look at Karen and made a small sound that was almost like permission. Karen knelt down carefully. She reached out with gentle hands and touched the broken wing. Ember flinched but did not attack. Karen examined the break with the skill of someone who had done this many times before. "It's a clean break," she said. "I can splint it. She need to stay still for a few weeks, but it should heal completely." "Do it," Danny said. "Please." For the next hour, Karen worked on Ember's wing. Danny held the hatchling the entire time. He talked to her constantly. He told her about his school and his friends. He told her about Earth and how different it was from Verdun 7. He told her about his grandmother, who used to sing to him when he was small. And then he started singing It was a lullaby that his grandmother had taught him. An old song from a place called Ireland on Earth. The words were about the moon and the stars, and a mother telling her child to sleep. Danny's voice was not great. He was just a 12-year-old boy, but he sang anyway. Ember listened. Her fire eyes grew soft. Her body relaxed in Danny's arms. By the time Karen finished wrapping the splint around her wing, Ember was almost asleep. "That's impossible," Karen whispered. "Drakari hatchlings are supposed to be aggressive. They don't bond with other species. They don't trust anyone outside their family group. This shouldn't be happening." But it was happening. Throughout the night, Danny stayed with Ember. His parents tried to make him go to bed, but he refused. He sat on the floor with the hatchling in his lap, feeding her water from his cupped hands. She drank it slowly, her small tongue lapping at his palms. "You're safe now," Danny told her. "You're not alone anymore. I'm going to take care of you until your family comes. And if they don't come, I'm going to take care of you forever. I promise." Something strange happened then. Danny felt it like a warmth spreading through his chest. It was like a door that had been closed inside him suddenly opened all the way. He could feel things that he had never felt before. He could feel Ember's heartbeat. He could feel her fear slowly going away. He could feel her starting to trust him, and Ember felt it too. She felt Danny's kindness like a bright light in the darkness. She felt his courage and his stubbornness and his love. She had never felt anything like it before. Humans were supposed to be weak and unimportant. That was what all Drakari knew. But this human was different. This human was special. Karen came to check on them in the middle of the night. She gasped when she saw Ember's scales. "Pete," she called. "Pete, come look at this." The scales had changed. They were still silver and blue, but now there were threads of gold woven through them. The gold was bright and beautiful, and it seemed to glow with its own light. "What does that mean?" Pete asked. Karen's hands were shaking. "I've read about this in old Drakari texts. It's called soul tethering. It's a bond that forms between two beings. It's incredibly rare. It hasn't happened between a Drakari and another species in over 10,000 years." She looked at her son, sitting there on the floor with a dragon in his lap. "Danny," she said, "do you feel different? Do you feel like something is connecting you to her?" Danny nodded. "I can feel her heart beating. Is that weird?" Karen laughed. It was a shocked, amazed laugh. "Yes, honey. That's very weird. That's the most weird thing that has ever happened in the history of weird things." The gold in Ember's scales got brighter. It was the color of Danny's soul, visible now to anyone who could see it. A human child had done something that warriors and diplomats and leaders had failed to do for centuries. He had connected with the Drakari. He had shown them what humanity really was. By morning, everything would change. The sky would fill with dragons, and the galaxy would hold its breath. But for now, in this quiet moment before the storm, a boy and a dragon slept together on the floor. They did not know what was coming. They only knew that they had found each other, and that was enough. The morning came with thunder that was not thunder. Danny woke up to the sound of alarms screaming across the colony. Red lights were flashing everywhere. People were running through the streets. Someone was shouting through the emergency speakers, but Danny could not understand the words. Ember was awake too. She was pressed against Danny's chest, and she was trembling. Her fire eyes were looking up at the ceiling like she could see through it. "What's happening?" Danny asked. His father burst into the room. His face was white with fear. "They're here," he said. "The Drakari. There's a whole fleet in orbit. 7 ships. Danny, they're here for her." Danny looked down at Ember. She made a small scared sound. He held her tighter. "It's okay," he told her. "Whatever happens, I'm not going to let anyone hurt you." Karen ran in behind Pete. She had her computer pad in her hands, and she was reading something on the screen. "The Colony Defense Force is standing down. There's no point in fighting. One of those ships could destroy our entire settlement in seconds." Outside, the sky had changed. Danny went to the window and looked up. Where there had been blue sky and white clouds, now there was shadow. The Drakari ships were so big that they blocked out the twin suns. They looked like living creatures themselves, with scales and wings and eyes that glowed with ancient power. "They tracked her across 3 star systems," Corinne said quietly. "They must have been searching for days. Drakari don't lose their young. They protect them with everything they have." Danny kept watching the sky. Something was coming down from one of the ships. It was falling like a meteor, trailing fire behind it. But it was not falling out of control. It was falling with purpose. "One of them is coming here," Pete said. "Everyone get away from the windows." But Danny did not move. He stood there with Ember in his arms and watched the fireball get closer and closer. It hit the ground about 100 meters from their house. The impact shook the whole building. Dust and smoke filled the air. When the smoke cleared, Danny saw her. She was standing in a crater that her landing had made. She was in a humanoid form, which meant she had chosen to look somewhat like a human. But she was 12 feet tall. Her skin was covered in scales that looked like frozen starlight. Her eyes were black with no white in them at all, and they seemed to contain collapsed stars and dying galaxies. She was the most terrifying thing Danny had ever seen. Karen grabbed Danny's arm. "That's a matriarch. One of their elder leaders. Danny, you need to hide. You need to run." But Danny shook his head. "I'm not leaving Ember." He walked toward the door. His parents tried to stop him, but he pulled away from them. He opened the door and stepped outside onto the porch. The matriarch was walking toward the house. Each step she took left smoking footprints in the ground. The air around her was hot enough to make the plants wilt and die. Colony security forces had their weapons pointed at her, but no one dared to shoot. She stopped when she saw Danny. For a long moment, they just looked at each other. A giant alien goddess and a 12-year-old boy in his pajamas. She could kill him with a thought. She could burn this whole colony to ash and never feel sorry about it. Humans were nothing to her. Insects. Dust. But Danny did not run. He stood there on his porch with Ember in his arms, and he looked right back at her. "Are you Ember's family?" he asked. His voice was steady, even though his heart was beating so hard he could feel it in his throat. "She was really scared last night. Her wing was broken. But I think she's feeling better now." The matriarch's black eyes widened slightly. She had not expected him to speak. She had not expected him to be so calm. She had certainly not expected him to ask if she wanted breakfast. "Do you want some cereal?" Danny asked. "I was going to have some before all the alarms started." The matriarch stared at him. Then her eyes moved to Ember, nestled in Danny's arms. And she saw the gold in the hatchling's scales. The change that came over her face was like watching a mountain crumble. Shock, disbelief, and something that might have been wonder. "Impossible," she said. Her voice was like the deep rumble of an earthquake. "This cannot be. The young one has soul tethered to a human child." She took another step closer. Danny did not step back. He held Ember protectively, his body positioned between the hatchling and the giant alien. "I don't know what soul tethered means," Danny said. "But I know that Ember was hurt and scared and alone. I found her crying in the ravine. I couldn't just leave her there." "You could have," the matriarch said. "Any sensible creature would have. We are the Drakari. We do not acknowledge lesser beings. We do not form bonds with them. Yet here you stand, with the gold of soul fire woven into her scales. You have done something that has not been done in 10,000 years. I just wanted to help her," Danny said simply. "That's all." The matriarch was silent for a long time. The whole colony was silent. Everyone was watching this moment between the tiny human boy and the ancient dragon goddess. Then the matriarch did something that no one expected. She knelt. The being who had lived for 6,000 years, who had watched stars born and die, who could destroy worlds with her fury, knelt before a 12-year-old boy in his pajamas. "I am Sithara the Voidwalker," she said. "I am matriarch of the 7th Fleet and guardian of the Eastern Reaches. I have come to retrieve the child of my clutch sister. But I see now that the child has found a guardian already." Danny looked at her. He did not understand everything that was happening. He did not know all the politics and history and ancient laws. But he understood one thing clearly. "I'm not giving her up," he said. "She's my friend now." Sithara looked at him with those galaxy eyes. And slowly, something that might have been a smile crossed her terrible face. "No," she said. "I do not think you are. And that, small one, is exactly why this has happened." She rose back to her full height. Behind her, more shapes were descending from the ships. More Drakari were coming. And they were coming to see the impossible thing that had happened on this small human world. Danny just stood there on his porch, holding Ember close while the sky filled with dragons. He was not afraid. He had made a promise in that ravine, and he was going to keep it. The trial was held in the center of the colony. The Drakari created a circle of fire that burned without spreading. Inside that circle, Danny stood with Ember in his arms. Outside the circle, the Council of the 7th Fleet watched with ancient eyes. There were 13 of them. 13 Drakari elders who had lived for thousands of years. They had seen civilizations rise and fall. They had witnessed the birth of new species and the death of old ones. And now they were here to decide the fate of one human boy. Danny's parents stood outside the circle with the other colonists. Karen was crying quietly. Pete had his arm around her, his face hard with fear and anger. They could not help their son. No human could help him now. Sithara stood in the center between Danny and the council. She was the only one who seemed uncertain about what should happen next. "The law is clear," said one of the elders. His name was Vornak, and he was one of the oldest among them. His scales had faded to gray from age, and his eyes burned with cold fire. "The soul bond is sacred. It cannot be broken. But it was never meant for lesser beings. This is an abomination. The human must be destroyed," said another elder. Her name was Kethril. "The bond will end with his death, and the hatchling will be free. There is no other way." Danny heard these words, but he did not cry. He did not beg. He just held Ember closer and looked at the elders with steady eyes. "If you kill me," he said quietly, "will it hurt her?" The council was silent. They had not expected the human to speak. They had not expected him to ask about the hatchling's well-being instead of pleading for his own life. "Yes," Sathara answered honestly. "Breaking a soul bond through death causes great pain to the surviving partner. She would feel your death as if it were her own. She would carry that pain for the rest of her life." Danny nodded. He looked down at Ember. She was looking back up at him with those fire eyes, and he could feel her fear through their bond. She was afraid for him. She was afraid of losing him. "Then I don't want you to do it," Danny said. "Not because I don't want to die, but because I don't want to hurt her." The council members looked at each other. This human child continued to surprise them. He was facing death, and his concern was still for the hatchling. "This proves nothing," Mornak said harshly. "He is trying to manipulate us. Humans are clever with words." But before anyone else could speak, Ember did something that shocked everyone. She spoke. Hatchlings were not supposed to speak to councils. They were too young, too unimportant. Their voices did not matter in matters of law. But Ember opened her mouth, and words came out in the deep, resonating language of the Drakari. "I will tell you what happened," she said. Her voice was young, but it carried through the bond she shared with Danny, giving it strength beyond her years. "I will tell you what this human did." The council had no choice but to listen. The soul bond gave Ember the right to speak. It was part of the same law they were using to judge Danny. "I was lost," Ember said. "I fell through a space fold during the transit. I did not know where I was. My wing was broken and I could not fly. I could not call for help. I was alone in the dark in pain and I was so afraid." She paused. Danny could feel her emotions through the bond. He could feel her remembering that terrible time in the ravine. "Then he came," Ember continued. "This small human. This child. He heard me crying and he came to find me. He did not know what I was. He did not know that my kind has ignored his kind for 200 years. He did not know that we consider humans to be lesser beings. He only knew that something was hurt and afraid." The fire around the circle flickered. The elders were leaning forward now, listening to every word. "He gave me his covering," Ember said. "His jacket. It smelled like him. Like safety. He carried me to his home even though I was heavy. He stayed awake all night to care for me. He fed me water from his own hands. He sang to me when I was scared." Ember's voice grew stronger. The gold in her scales began to glow. "This is what humans are," she said. "This is what they do. They find broken things and they try to fix them. They find crying things and they try to comfort them. I have only known this human for one night, but in that night, he showed me more kindness than I have ever known." She looked at the council with eyes that burned like small stars. "You call them lesser beings. You ignore them like they are nothing. But this lesser being saved me. This nothing gave me everything when I had nothing at all. If that is what lesser beings do, then perhaps we are the ones who are lesser." The council was silent. They did not know how to respond to a hatchling who spoke with such power and conviction. Then Danny did something that sealed everything. He could feel that Ember was scared again. Even though she had spoken bravely, she was terrified of what would happen next. So he did what he had done in the ravine. What he had done all night. What he had done on the porch that morning. He reached out and took her claw in his hand. "It's okay," he told her softly. "I'm right here. Whatever happens, I'm right here." The gold in Ember's scales flared so bright that everyone had to look away. When the light faded, something had changed. Everyone could feel it. The bond between Danny and Ember had grown stronger. It had become something unbreakable. Sathara stepped forward. She looked at the council, then at Danny, then at Ember. "I have lived for 6,000 years," she said slowly. "I have seen empires rise and fall. I have watched stars die, but I have never seen anything like this. A human child, facing death, thinking only of the hatchling's pain. A hatchling, speaking before the council, defending the human who saved her. This is not an abomination. This is something precious. Something rare. Something we have forgotten how to be." She turned to face the council fully. "I say we accept the bond. I say we acknowledge this human as one of us. Not because the law demands it, but because he has earned it. He has shown us what we should be." The council members looked at each other. One by one, they nodded. Even Vornok, the oldest and harshest among them, bowed his ancient head. "The bond is accepted," he said. "The human is acknowledged. Let no one challenge this." The fire circle faded away. Danny felt something loosen in his chest. He looked down at Ember, and she looked up at him. They had done it. They had survived. And now everything was about to change. The ceremony happened at sunset, when both suns of Verdant 7 were touching the horizon. The sky was painted in colors that Danny had never seen before. Purple and gold and deep orange, all mixed together like a painting made by the universe itself. All of the Drakari from the fleet had come down to the surface. There were hundreds of them, standing in their humanoid forms around the open field where Danny stood. His parents were there too, along with everyone from the colony. Humans and dragons standing together for the first time in history. Sithara walked toward Danny. She had changed her appearance slightly. Her scales seemed softer now, less terrifying. Her galaxy eyes still held ancient depths, but there was warmth in them that had not been there before. "Kneel, young one," she said. Danny knelt. He was still holding Ember, who was much healthier now. Her wing was healing well, and she could move it a little without pain. The gold threads in her scales glowed softly in the evening light. Sithara placed her hand on Danny's head. Her touch was warm, almost hot, but it did not burn him. "I name you Kadran," she said, and her voice carried across the field so that everyone could hear. "In our tongue, this means the morning star. You are the light that comes before the dawn. You are the hope that shines in darkness." She pressed her forehead to his. Danny felt a rush of warmth flow through him. It was like the bond with Ember, but different, older, deeper. He was being connected to something vast and ancient. "This honor has not been given to any being outside our kind for 15,000 years, Sithara continued. "It is reserved for heroes, for those who show us what courage and compassion truly mean. You have earned it, Danny Cole. You have earned it in ways that warriors and kings have failed to earn it." She stepped back. Danny rose to his feet. He felt different. He felt like he was standing at the beginning of something huge. The other Drakari began to make a sound. It was deep and resonating, almost like singing, but not quite. It filled the air and made the ground shake. It was a sound of acknowledgement, a sound of welcome. Danny's mother was crying. His father had tears in his eyes too, though he tried to hide them. They had nearly lost their son today, but instead, they had gained something incredible. Over the next few weeks, things changed faster than anyone could believe. The Drakari did not leave. They stayed in orbit around Verdant 7, and they began to talk. Really talk for the first time in 200 years. Human diplomats came from Earth and the other colony worlds. Drakari representatives met with them in long sessions that went on for days. Trade agreements were discussed. Knowledge was shared. Boundaries were drawn and alliances were formed. And through all of it, the story of Danny Cole spread across the galaxy. Ships carried the tale from system to system. News broadcasts told it on 100 different worlds. The story of a human boy who found a crying dragon hatchling and changed everything. People called it different things. Some called it the miracle of Verdant 7. Others called it the first contact that should have happened centuries ago. But the Drakari called it something else. They called it the Legend of the Morning Star. 1 year later, the first formal alliance between humanity and the Drakari was signed. It happened on Earth in a great hall that had been built just for this purpose. Leaders from both species came together to mark the moment, and Danny Cole was there. He was 13 now, taller than he had been, but still just a kid. Ember sat beside him, no longer a hatchling but growing into her power. Her wing had healed completely, and she could fly now, though she never flew far from Danny. The human president asked Danny to say a few words. He did not want to. He did not like being the center of attention. But Ember nudged him with her snout, and he knew she wanted him to do it. So Danny stood up in front of all those important people, all those cameras, all those watching eyes across the galaxy. I don't really know why everyone makes such a big deal about what I did, he said honestly. I just found someone who needed help, and I helped them. That's what you're supposed to do. That's what my parents taught me. That's what my grandmother taught me before she died. He looked at the Drakari delegation. Some of them were members of the council that had almost ordered his death. They looked different now, softer somehow. I think maybe that's the thing people forget, Danny continued. We spend so much time thinking about who's strong and who's weak, who's important and who's not. We forget that kindness doesn't care about any of that. Kindness just sees someone who needs help and tries to help them. He reached out and put his hand on Ember's head. She leaned into his touch, and the bond between them hummed with warmth. Ember was hurt and scared. I was just a kid walking home from school. Lal was just a kid walking home from school. We found each other at exactly the right moment. And now here we are. Two species that ignored each other for 200 years, finally talking. Finally working together. All because I picked up a crying dragon and took her home. He smiled, a small, embarrassed smile. I guess what I'm trying to say is that you never know what your kindness might do. You never know how a small act might change everything. So just be kind. That's it. That's the whole secret. Just be kind. The hall was silent when he finished. Then the applause started. It came from humans and Drakari alike. It rolled through the great hall like thunder, like the sound of two species finally understanding each other. Decades later, when historians wrote about this moment, they always returned to that night in the ravine. They wrote about how a 12-year-old boy heard crying in the darkness and chose to help. Instead of walking away, the Drakari still tell the story to their hatchlings. They tell it on long journeys between stars, when the darkness is deep and the way is uncertain. It reminds them that strength is not the only thing that matters, that sometimes the smallest beings can have the biggest hearts. The legend always begins the same way. Once, in the darkness, a small human found one of our children crying. He did not know what she was. He did not know that we had ignored his kind for centuries. He only knew that she was hurt and afraid and alone. And instead of fear, he chose love. This is why we call them friends. This is why we stand beside them now. This is what a human child taught us about ourselves. And it always ends with the same words. Be kind. Just be kind. You never know what it might become. Danny Cole lived a long life. He traveled to stars with Ember at his side. He saw wonders that most humans only dreamed about. He became an ambassador between species, a bridge between worlds. But whenever anyone asked him about his greatest achievement, he always said the same thing. I found a friend when she needed one. Everything else just came from that. And in the vast darkness between stars, wherever dragons flew and humans traveled, the legend of the morning star lived on. A reminder that kindness is never small. That compassion is never wasted. That sometimes The greatest changes start with the simplest acts. A boy finding a crying dragon in a ravine and choosing to help.